Hello ladies, welcome to Homemaking Radio, a place where you can listen while you work. You don't have to stay here, you don't have to attend a class, you don't have to go somewhere to get motivated. Hopefully this will keep you going when you're doing some of the most tedious, repetitive things, which in every job there is something, and you know you're not forced to listen to somebody else's music, and you can go at your own pace and you can choose what you'd like to do while you listen. And if after 15 minutes you don't want to hear it anymore, you can turn it off and you can pick it up later. And also, due to the smart suggestion of a reader, I put 20 of these on a playlist, separate playlist on YouTube, so that you can have continuous play if you want to. Each of them are about an hour long, except in the very beginning, years ago when I first began, I only had them for 10 minutes. So I might even put those on a separate playlist. And so today, I'd like to welcome you here, and if you're new, I don't take comments on YouTube. I'm only doing this for my blog. So if you'd like to, please go over to my blog. I leave a link in the description box here, and you can go to my blog and leave a comment and see what everyone else is saying. And so let's get started. Today I usually go into 3 areas. I have getting your preparation, getting ready to get to work at home, or if you're not working, there are other activities that you might be wanting to do. And then we talk a little bit about homemaking, and then we talk about our people things, you know, your attitudes, and sometimes your emotions, and sometimes dealing with people who, I guess our favorite kind are the contradictors, the ones that want to contradict everything we say, and how our parents dealt with this and how we deal with it. And we're having a bit of sunshine today. It's coming in quite strongly in that window, so I'm a bit washed out in the video, but you're not here to watch me, except for 1 or 2 things that I'm going to do today. And the first thing I'm going to do is show you my teacup. It's it says it's Queen's fine bone china made in England, and this is called Lily of the Valley. There must have been a series of these. I know every month is supposed to have a certain flower. And this one is, the plate is different than the cup. The cup is Queen's, and this is Royal Windsor, but they match pretty well. They go pretty well together, don't they? Lily of the Valley. Very hard for me to grow those. I bring them home sometimes and plant them, but they don't do really well. Anyway, I like having it on a teacup, and I got this one at an antique store for about $5. But it was a long time ago, and I'm recycling my cups through my videos, and I've decided that some of these with the teeny tiny handles will have to go. I've seen people get their fingers stuck in them, and children, and so I'm going more towards the cups that I get at Home Goods, which I really like. And but these are fun too, and you don't have to put your fingers in them, but I just wanted to show you. It has the same shape as many of the Royal Albert teacups. So today, if you have not got ready and you are maybe not able to focus or get started, then I would suggest you head for the bathroom, get your shower, get dressed, and get in fresh clothes and pretty clothes and something that makes you happy, and something, especially in, you know, you go through these winter months that are rather dull. I think that's really important to have clothing that's bright and pretty and exciting to you during those months, and not to dress dull, which is what we tend to do in winter, isn't it? We tend to go for the duller colors and the darker. And I also wanted to remind you that we had an old history book here from some family at the church had lent it to us, and it, I guess, had been passed down to them through the generations, and it was an old book talking about the social life during the winters. And during the winters in America, that was when, of course, they couldn't farm. They were mainly agrarian people, and they couldn't farm, and they you know, couldn't do the seasonal things like the apples and the fruits, and so that was their social, that was their time for social time. And this book recorded people who had dinners in their homes, and people spent the winter with a book full of social engagements. I think it should go back to that way. Winter can be quite grueling for some people, especially the homemaker whose work is more isolated. And in the olden days, even the men knew that women had an isolating life, that homemaking was isolating. It kind of has to be that way. You really can't do it in a group, and you have to have the privacy, and you have to be able to be self-motivated, like you're self-employed, and you can't have someone standing over you telling you what to do, and you really can't work in a group. It's not the kind of work that really is successful in a group. Now, I have seen ladies who will teach their daughters how to bake, and the daughters will be standing around, and they are doing something in a group, but that's a little bit different. And I know for myself, you know, when I'm going through something like the books on the bookshelf, or cleaning out something, a closet, or even cleaning the car, I don't really need people standing around. It's just isolating. It's not the same as being lonely. Isolation and loneliness are not the same thing, because you know what that's like. You can also be in a group and still feel kind of left out. So I am making these videos so that you can listen as you go, and I think it's very important that you be prepared. And why should you dress up? Why should you fix your hair and your face? Why should you put a little perfume on? So you can feel prepared and not in a panic. And you know, you should always be prepared for something. You never know. You might have a totally uneventful day. You got all dressed up and for almost nothing. But the day that you decide you're not going to do it is the day you're needed outside of the home, and you have to rush. No time for really careful preparation. You throw something on and go, and you never feel like you've quite caught up with yourself, with the day. So we want to start out the day, and even if it's 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, or early afternoon, please go and just start over. Get a shower, just start over if you haven't been able to quite get a grip on the day. And this is one of the things I practiced when I was raising my children. If they just didn't seem to be able to function well early in the morning, and you know, by 11 or 12, and they still were a little bit kind of off, I would suggest, why don't you go get a shower? Why don't you go take a bath? Why don't you go wash your hair? And they always felt better. And putting on clean clothes, we can do that too. You know, it's a feeling of getting a start, getting a good start. So now I'd like to move on with a few things about the home, if you're willing to listen. But first, I want to show you a book that I brought to do a review of, and it's called Victoria at Table with Family and Friends. Now, what it is a collection of the first 10 years of recipes that were found in the original Victoria magazines that began in 1988. And I think I have most of the 1988 copies, and the 10 years after that. And when they had this on sale in the Victoria magazines, it was announced, it was advertised, you know, 10 years later they had an advertisement. The cost was extreme. It was like, I don't know, $60, very, very high. Well, recently I found it on one of those thrift bookstores, and very, very little money. And what I like about it, now first of all, you open it up and there's this beautiful page of a dinner table, family dinner table, and you get the vision. You get the idea that, well, I don't have to wait to go to a fancy place or a hotel to eat like that. I've got that stuff. I can arrange a table like that, and you can, you know. And if you, let's say, have a family that's not quite on board and they tend to be a little nervous and uncomfortable with things like that, you know, they will probably make remarks that will discourage you, but don't let that discourage you, because if you do, you'll never do it again, and you'll never rise above your circumstances. You never rise above your knowledge. You have to keep going. They will get used to it after a while. And so here's another picture of, they also had an afternoon tea, and here's another picture, and I'll put some of these on the post. And what they had at this afternoon tea was tarragon chicken salad with borage blossoms, and sandwiches with thyme blossoms. And so it just has a lot of, and then on the side of each there's a menu on the side of each one, and then there's a little history of something like what is borage, and what is watercress, and what is on each page. There is a little. Here's one here that's got a little history. I'll just read this to you, and it's in the recipe called chilled spring vegetables. Early plantation sugar snap peas and baby onions. Oh, it looks good. Now, a plantation was a place where planting would go on, and so it was just coined plantation, and it was where there was a large planting of something there. And they say when you go to look at the old historical plantations, they're a lot smaller than you imagined. Like, they're not as big as they were in the movies. They're just small. Just the houses don't seem to be as grand as they were, but it was called plantation because that's where things were planting. So, you know, I've got a little plantation out in the backyard here. This is about the grocery bag. Interesting, huh? The paper grocery bag was not introduced until the late 1800s, so a sturdy marketing basket was a very necessary appendage. But one basket simply would not do. There were baskets with wire filigree for eggs, those made with twigs, and the French use small narrow basket for bread. So just these little tiny things. And you know what? I think a recipe book, especially for a daughter coming up in the world, and you want her to be interested, to have a cookbook that has little things on it like that is just more interesting. And I know the Gooseberry Patch has cookbooks, and you can still get those on thrift books and online. And they have little things down at the bottom of each page, a recipe on how to make an attractive serving dish, or how to use something for something else. Just little bitty tidbits of things on every page. I think girls should have that, especially not to make the cookbooks so hard that they're not interesting. Should give you a little bit of life. This one is called Vegetables as Serving Dishes. Acorn or butternut squashes make earthy, appealing serving dishes. Peppers and oranges work well too. Cut them out and hollow them out carefully so they will be leak-proof. And they have a picture of it here. It's quite interesting. Now these recipes, of course, they're a little bit more complicated than your normal, but you know, you wouldn't be using it every day. So Victoria at Table by Victoria Magazine, and the year that it was published, let me see if I can find that. 1995. A lot of good things came out in 1995. Seems like every book I pick up was published around that time. Okay, so I'm going to move on a little bit, and so I wanted to talk to you a little bit today. If you've got something to do, please go do it, because there isn't anything to watch here. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about clutter. And it's almost like a magnet. Now, we had at one time a part of the kitchen which was kind of a little piece of cabinet that came out that had nothing on it, and as you walked past it, you know, people would set something down on it, like their keys, or like a piece of paper, or like the mail, or half of a sandwich, or some leftover thing. And it seemed like if you let one thing sit there, a pen or a pencil, that it always attracted more. But when we decided we're going to leave this blank, no one dared put anything on it. And when they put one thing on it and were made to take it off, we noticed that it didn't attract as much. It's almost like it's magnetic. You put something down on these places and it just attracts more and more and more and more. And it could be any type of, you might have to notice where this is in your house. For me, it's by the front door, and that's that little place where you hang your coats on. There's a little shelf there, and of course everything, we put our groceries there before we take our coats off, and then we go back and get our groceries and put them away. And we put things there when we're ready to put them in the car or take them somewhere else. And eventually I'll look at it and think, that stuff didn't get put away, and it's just a place that attracts. It's got to be magnetic. So there are a few things of clutter left around always seem to attract more. So I think every little while, and it's not good for a homemaker to sit for too long. You know, you can actually get quite discouraged after and not know why, but sitting a long time is not good for you. And that was one reason that I homeschooled my children. I didn't think that being sedentary for, what is it, 6 hours there at school was actually that good for them. And that normally in normal life, boys and girls wouldn't be sitting all the time to learn something. So my children learned in all kinds of different situations and not just desk work. So with the homemaker, you've got to be careful not to sit too much. You can start to get discouraged and then lose your courage. And once you lose your courage, you lose your sight, you lose your foresight into seeing what could be done and why you should be doing it. And it's almost as bad as someone telling you that what you're doing is worthless or no good and they're discouraging you. The sitting too long can make you feel like you're not breathing properly, and so you do need to get up every now and then, do a walkthrough, go walk through and put some things, tidy some things up, pick some clutter up, do that, and just get in the habit of doing it. It makes you feel really important too, and I mean you just feel so noble doing that. And if I had my little candle holder here, I would show you what I carry through the house when I go through and check the lights. I turn off everything and close the curtains and turn down the beds. And so try to do, the other thing that I wanted to say about homekeeping is try to do something well. Like one lady I know decided she wanted to learn to really bake bread. I mean, she knew how to bake bread, but she'd like to do it in a different way, have some variety, and learn to become really good at it. And I had that bread book that I showed you not long ago in a video, and I've always wanted to make croissants. And a couple of times I nearly got there. I nearly got them just right. But I found out that at the bakeries they have a special machine that rolls out the dough so thinly that that's the reason they can make such good ones. And but anyway, I wanted to do something well. And so when you've learned to do something, choose something in the homemaking department that you would like to learn to do well. And so I picked sewing, and you don't have to stay with one thing. You can sew for a while and then decide, oh, I don't want to do that for a while. I'm going to do something else. And today I have spent most of my day sewing. And what I do is I keep the ironing. I have 2 ironing boards, and one is in the closet in the hall where we hang our coats, and one is back in the sewing room. But if I don't want to be back in the sewing room, which I don't really like to be back there because, first of all, you can't see what's going on at the front door. If someone comes up or someone drives up, it takes them several knocks for you to hear them because it's so far away. And so I have an extra ironing board, so I don't have to take that one out. And I set it up in the dining room, and I can see outside, and I get up. I will sew a seam and then get up and press the seam open. I will sew a facing on and get up and press it all down. I will just sew and stand and sit, and that way I'm not sitting all the time. Now, sitting kind of restricts your breathing, and it restricts your bloodstream and everything. So get up every now and then, do a walkthrough, or if you sew, don't sit all the time. Get up often. And then I have also fixed some lunch and baked a bit of bread, and I have loaded some things in the dishwasher. Haven't started that yet. And I did a load of laundry and ironed one shirt. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I did. Mostly picked up after myself, which I do that. I make work for myself. The other thing I'd like to tell you while we're talking about the house and housekeeping is don't sell your house short. Don't shortchange your house. Don't shortchange yourself, your children, your husband, your family. Don't shortchange anybody by doing a less than excellent job. If you can, if you have time to do something well, go ahead and do it, and give your house the honor it deserves. If you've had a house built for you, or if you live in a house that is your own, or even if it's not your own, arrange it and clean it and look after it as though it were a very valuable personal belonging, and don't sell it short. Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell your house short. And also, your time is extremely valuable. If you're going to do something that involves housekeeping or house cleaning, then do it as excellently as you possibly can. And how do you do that? Just by practice. Just each time you do it, you figure out how to do it a little better. I know people who will say that they don't want to be involved in their house or housekeeping because they're not good at it. You can't get good at it unless you get used to it. And it's like a child who learns to walk. He doesn't stay crawling forever. He gets up, he falls down, and he gets up again, and pretty soon he gets up and he won't fall down, and pretty soon he's walking and he's not going to go back to crawling. Well, it's the same with anything else. You only get good at it by trying over and over. And if you have tried 20 times and you still can't do it, then I will admit that there's a problem there. But I believe that you can. I really do. And that part of the problem with being discouraged in homemaking is just your thinking. You have to think, I am going to beat this thing. I'm not going to let it control me. So now I want to talk about why we keep the home. Why do we keep the home? Well, first of all, if you have a consciousness towards God, you know, He's ever there. You have a direct connection to Him. You feel like you're held by a string to Him, your thoughts to His thoughts, and you can't live with yourself if you don't have a good conscience towards God. And having a house and the responsibility of house cleaning is part of owning up to that responsibility towards God because He gave you the job. And then the other thing is your self-dignity. If you have self-dignity, others will see that. Now, I'm not saying that people will always respect you, because some people are so disrespectful, they would spit on a queen. So it wouldn't matter, you know, if you had the most ultimate self-dignity, you dressed well, you were well-spoken, you took care of your home, and you had all this dignity. There are some people that are just rude, that just don't care. So I'm not saying that, but in general, at least live in such a way that you don't deserve to be mistreated, and live in such a way that they would be ashamed, you know, for criticizing you. And we do have that. I know that some of you are saying that's never happened to you, and you've just had this wonderful homemaking life and no one's ever given you any trouble. That's nice, and I hope it stays that way, but that doesn't happen to everyone. That's why I like to cover these parts about you know, dealing with negative people. It's kind of a challenge to me, and there are some people that are so negative that I know they're going to be contradictory, and sometimes I like to have a little fun by saying something like, it's a nice day, isn't it? Just to hear them, just to prove my point. If they're going to say, no, it's not. Well, yeah, but it's going to be over soon. But like I said yesterday, and if you're new here, please go listen to yesterday's video. It's on the playlist and on the previous post here. Like I said yesterday, let's not be happy with a glass half full. Let's try to get that glass all the way full of wonderful, glorious life. And in the home, you can make this the best place, the place you want to be the most. So pretty soon, all those places that you would like to go kind of pale in comparison to what you have at home. You want to go on a vacation, and you become a little bit disappointed because the linens aren't as fresh as your own home. The food is not as organic as yours at home. The you know, the things that you are sitting on are not your own, and they've been sat on by hundreds of other people before you. And you know, there's just something nice about having your own things. You have your own car. You know, the public doesn't ride in your car. That's your car, and that's your seat that you sit in all the time. And it's the same with your family things, with your dishes and your bathroom and everything. It's also wonderfully private. We should be very proud of it, and we should make it a better place than any other place that we've ever been. And while vacations are kind of fun, home is really a healthier place to be. Wouldn't you agree? if, of course, you're keeping it up as in the ideal way, you know. So, okay, I've spoken for 25 minutes, and those of you who've had enough may now go and try something else or go do something. And so because of course we want you to be happy, and you shouldn't stay if you're not happy, and if you don't like it, or if there's something that really would suit you better, please go and find that now, because I am now going to talk about the people part, and that is the if you get a lot of criticism, or even some criticism, is I'd like to encourage you not to be slayed by it, because you should wear it as a badge of honor. You should look at it as though, you know, you wouldn't be noticed if no one criticizes you. You're just really not being very effective, actually. So, and while we want to not put ourselves in harm's way emotionally, it's always inevitable that someone's going to say something or kind of get it in for you for some reason. Some of it could be jealousy too. Lots of people are very unhappy that they have to work outside the home, and they don't understand how to get around it. And they see you having success and having a happiness and a peaceful life, and so sometimes people can get a little caustic, and you need to expect that. And it may be people in your own family who aren't quite on board with what you're doing, or for some reason there's a mentality in our culture today that if a woman doesn't come with money, that if she isn't earning money, that if her skills aren't, quote, marketable, that she has no worth. And so people tend to look down on her, when actually what she's doing at home by homemaking, by arranging, by coordinating, and all the things that she does, is she's making it possible for others in the home to go out to work. She's making it easier for them. She's making it easy for them to make a clean getaway there. Everything is ready for them. And so she does a lot more, and she does it without pay. However, her pay is it's kind of like an equity that she builds up at the end of a certain amount of time. She will own most of what she cleaned, and she watches their budget, and she shops for the best clothing, and she has the time to consider everything. She has the time to examine everything before she buys it. You know, even when I go to the grocery store, I'm looking at, I have grown my own food, so I know what good food is supposed to look like. So if I'm going to make a salad, I'm going to examine all those vegetables, all those raw vegetables, and see if they're like what I have in my garden in the summer. And so I know when it's a bad piece of fruit or a bad head of lettuce, because I can grow my own. And it takes time to select these things. You know, no one ever thinks about that for the homemaker that's at the grocery store. As a matter of fact, I don't think the grocery stores would be able to stay open in the morning or in the daytimes if it weren't for the business of the homemakers, because that's when they go, that's when they do the shopping. What would they do without business like that? And a great deal of time is spent in the grocery store by the homemaker to make so that we can eat at home, and so that we can prepare our food from the most fresh ingredients. So don't sell yourself short. Don't sell the home short. And then another reason, first of all, we do this because we want to honor God. Second, we want to be appreciative of our station in life and of the home that we live in, and to give self-dignity, and also dignity to our own families, and give them a good reputation. And also, in case of sudden illness, now if you yourself have the days now and then that you just don't feel well, you'll be awfully glad that the day before you loaded that dishwasher, or that you got the laundry done, or that you picked up the clutter. You're going to be awfully glad that you did that the night before, because then you have that day that you're not feeling well and you have to rest a little bit more, and that does not weigh so heavily on you. Probably recover more quickly. And the other thing that you have to consider is, if you should get very ill or in some way laid up so that others have to come in and look after you and take care of you for a little time, you're not putting an undue burden on anyone else. And I knew a woman who carefully looked after all of her things, and at the bottom of everything, like the teacup, she put someone's name on it, so that if she passed away, or if she got sick, or she had to leave her home, that everybody knew whose was what. And she went through her things regularly so that her household would be easy to take apart and put away in different people's houses if that's what she wanted. And so we want to be thoughtful of other people. One of the reasons that I have spoken to you about, quote, that room, is I have a big storage room, and I'm carefully going through all the boxes, because if I get sick or laid up, or we have to leave or something, or go away on a trip or something, that people in my family are not burdened with it, because they have enough problems. All of you know what it's like to have to break up housekeeping for your parents and grandparents, and we want to make that as easy a transition as possible, so that they don't have the burden of their own family and then having to come up over and take care of your house. So that's why we want to keep up with things as best we can, and this is really, really important. So now I want to get in more to people, and then I might read you a story. And one of the things I'd like to say about people is, we're all familiar with people who like to ruin things. For instance, you're having a get-together to honor someone in your family. Maybe it's an anniversary, maybe it's a birthday, and there's one person there who is a family member, maybe from outside, comes in and decides to start an argument on this special day. Have you ever had a day ruined like that? Have you ever spoken to your children about the concept of ruining someone's get-together or someone's special occasion, and how rude that is? That, when you're invited, and especially eating around the eating table, that should be pleasant. That should not be a time to bring up things that are unpleasant, or things that make other people feel sad or uncomfortable all the time. That the eating should be a time, especially special occasion eating, like a time when you're honoring someone else and it's their special day, that we should not make it unpleasant. Parents are sometimes a little too anxious and harsh with people, and they'll forget, aha, this is a special day or a special occasion or a special meal, and they'll start lecturing. And so pretty soon children don't want to eat. They don't want to sit at the table and eat. They want to go somewhere else, because this has been a place where they feel that it's not pleasant. So one thing we have to remember is, nobody likes people who come over and ruin your day, or ruin a special occasion, or ruin a meal. And I don't know quite what to do about it all the time, but I tell you what, we can work on ourselves, and whatever we want others to be, we should try to do it ourselves. So remember not to ruin something just because everyone's sitting around and they're all talking, and you don't bring up things that are, I would say, controversial. And if you know how people believe, and it doesn't hurt you too much, you can be quiet about your differences, and you can make it pleasant, at least make it pleasant. Now, a lot of people don't like to do that because they think that the visit wasn't as meaningful. To them, a meaningful visit is when you really get down into discussing hardcore things that are controversial, but it doesn't work all the time, so you have to be discerning about it. And I have been speaking for 35 minutes, and so now I'm going to go on to Pioneer Ribbons, which was written by Miss Lily of the Valley. And I hope that I could reread these books in a separate video. It would only take 10 minutes per book, but I could put maybe them on a separate playlist, a separate video, if you ever want your children to come and read them, because I wouldn't want them to have to sit through a homemaking video and then just the last 10 minutes to listen to this. So it would be probably more convenient to find them if eventually I put them on their own video. So I might do that, and I'll put the link to it if I ever do that. So if you remember in the last post, the video or post before last, and I'll have to label these so that you can go back and look, that the lady in Pioneer Ribbons was a young girl, 13 years old, and she's on the Oregon Trail in the 1800s, and she was 13 years old, and she was walking the Oregon Trail, and she was wearing a bright ribbon in her hair at first, but as the days had gone by, that start to get more simple, start to wear things that are easier to walk in, you start to not really care so much about vanity, and so she took her ribbons out of her hair because, she wanted to save them, and she just put them in her pocket. And someone that was walking behind her told her that he had kept his eye on her ribbons, and he was a young boy about her age, and he had two sisters, and he told her that he'd really like it if she put those ribbons back, because it was very, he got sleepy when he was walking, and those ribbons, when he was walking behind her, would kind of flash in the sun, and they were colorful, and so she put them back in, and that was when we left them. So today on the Trail of Ribbons, I will read you more of this story if you like, and I will try to label the two videos where I have read this, and I will also try to just do a separate video with these stories in it, which that just might be easier. Okay, so if you want to gather your children around and they want to listen to this, I'll give you a minute or two and you can go and get them. So, the Trail of Ribbons. In the second week of the Oregon trip, Allison Campbell and her parents on the Oregon Trail were walking the flat, sage-lined path. Now, I read somewhere that the Oregon Trail was not always difficult, that it was pretty flat, and it wasn't one place. It was just a wide expanse of places where people had traveled. It wasn't one particular tiny little path. And so as she walked the sage-lined path, Allison spotted a stack of books held in place with a stone. Now, in those days, the pioneers would lighten their load on their wagon, and they'd often take books out and just stack them in a stack beside the path or the trail, and they would, and other people would come along and pick them up and read them. They would just walk along reading, kind of like we do our cell phones, just walk along reading. And so this was quite a common thing to see, and left by previous travelers to lighten their wagon loads, other travelers eagerly picked them up and read them while walking. The expanse was without obstacles to walk around, and reading was something easy to do. Some people read the books aloud to small crowds that walked alongside. Allison eagerly looked through the pile of books and their welcome pages. These books were on subjects such as history, geography, the Bible, horticulture, or architecture. The books were so educational that the pioneers who read them were almost good at teaching school by the time they arrived in the Oregon Territory. Yeah, they would be, wouldn't they? Some people read the books aloud to small crowds that walked alongside. Allison eagerly looked through the pile of books, and these books were not on subjects that she was interested in. They did not interest her. She wanted to know more about her new land and the people that settled it, about their gardens, their recipes, their house plans, their social lives, the churches. Saturday, before night crept up, the wagons were circled and a fire was built. The camp was filled with singing, and the smell of cornbread and cowboy beef with beans filled the air. Allison sat on the edge of the back of the wagon and wrote in the little book given to her by Bethany a few days earlier. This evening she would write some books from her mind and save, and since they were to stay overnight because of Sunday morning church gathering, she had more time to plot the stories. Allison's eyelids closed in sweet slumber that night with the sound of the wagon wheels in her dreams. She woke rested and looking forward to the church service. She and the others welcomed a chance just to sit down, and they didn't care how long they had to sit, because it was better than walking. The preacher was also the wagon master. He had some of his family with him, and he had come to set up churches in the Oregon Territory. Sunday morning was glorious. She sat on a makeshift chair from a wood box of her belongings and carefully turned the thin pages of the family Bible. Everyone stood up for the final song, one they knew by heart, called Promised Land, which had been sung by her grandmother back in the early part of the century. And these were the words: "We're going to the Promised Land, a land of our reward, where we will meet the angel band and see our blessed Lord." How much like the journey of the Israelites to Canaan's land was the pioneer journey to Oregon. What an honor to do something so parallel. Allison finished writing in the little book the first part of the story, and this is what you are reading now. The wagon master shouted, "Get ready," and they all checked the wagons and the grounds before they left. Allison took a piece of tattered ribbon from her pocket, not the one in her hair, and tied up her little book, leaving it with a stack of abandoned books they had camped beside. This book was not the same as the others had left behind, or the other left behind books. It was a book that would be honey to a child's heart, and she hoped it would give some hope and happiness to someone. This was her service to those who would come after her. The McNeils were several wagons behind hers, and she hoped it would be for them. She hoped that Bethany would read it. She felt a sense of purpose as she walked that day, dreaming up her next story to write at night beside the campfire. Today was truly a great day, and she had fresh enthusiasm. The sky was brighter and the rocks were more colorful. So ladies, be looking forward to more stories from Miss Lily of the Valley in the future. But I can see I'm going to have to put them on a separate video. And so ladies, if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a comment and please tell me what your list was and what you did. And it helps others because they think, well, what am I supposed to do when I'm at home? And you know, if you're used to just being home on weekends, you don't sometimes see that Monday through Friday you can spread your work out between Monday and Friday, and you don't have to cram it all in on the weekend. The weekend can be more leisurely. And to a homemaker, we don't have a blue Monday because every Monday is a wonderful day. We look forward to every day of the week. And sometimes the weekends are more rushed and grueling than the weekdays, and we love those quiet days from Monday to Friday. So we don't have a blue Monday. We just have a wonderful rosy Monday. And so whatever day it is in your home, I hope you get a few things done while you listened. And please leave me a comment. And thank you for your prayers and for your love and for all the encouragement that you give me. And I will see you next time. Bye.